We will call the Sunnyvale 4B Economic Development Board meeting together for February 8, 2022 at 7:23 p.m. All members present except member Anthony, member LaShawn. First order of business is public comment. The 4B Board of Directors invites citizens to address the board on any matter except items on the agenda and public hearings that are included in the agenda. Comments related to those items on the agenda, public hearings will be heard when those specific items / hearings start. Citizen comments are limited to 3 minutes unless otherwise required by law. To address the, we've already done that. Board is not permitted to take any action or discuss any item not listed on the agenda. Have anybody that would like to speak in the public forum? Yes, ma'am. Yes. Please state your name and address.
Hi, my name is Mary Kuhn. I live at 373 Taverner Lane, right across the street from this soccer flag football field. And I have a couple of concerns. I think the park looks great. I do have a couple of concerns because I live there and I live what happens when there's people on that field. Presently, there's not any room within the walking path for the spectators to sit. So they sit on top of the walking path. They sit in this narrow grassy area between the sidewalk and the walking path, hence forcing pedestrians into the street. So I don't know what your thought is with that. Every other field I've ever been to, the walking path was far enough outside the field where people could walk and people could sit within the walking path on bleachers or whatever and watch whatever event was taking place.
Very good.
But that doesn't happen here. So I don't know if there's room on one of these other plots to move that field so that it's not within the walking path. And then there would be room for those people, because they actually set up a camp. They set up tents. There are golf carts that sit out there, which is going to be a problem with your lighting. You're going to have problems with that because kids and people ride through that park like crazy people on golf carts. So they're going to tear up your lighting, unfortunately. Anyway, that's a concern. The other thing is some of the other parks show 80 parking spaces. This shows 25 additional parking places. So I'm wondering if there's enough parking places for if the fields are full, are there enough parking places in the parking spaces on Jobson for people to park? Because it's a safety hazard for them to be parking on Taverner like they have been.
Valid points. Appreciate that, especially since you live there.
Yeah. Well, and they pull up into our driveway. They pull up onto our curve. They've broken some of our sprinklers. They do U-turns in the road. They park all the way down to the fire water hydrant. It's just a free-for-all when those games are going on because they're late, they're speeding, they're running the stop sign. It's crazy. So we're looking forward to having a fence there to cause those people to park in the parking lot, but I'm concerned that there's going to be enough parking spaces to accommodate if all those, if there's a tournament or if all those spaces are full.
As it's designed right now, those are all practice facilities, but to your point, it could become something else.
Yeah, but I mean, there could possibly be somebody practicing on all of those fields and the soccer field all at the same time. And how many cars would that be? And is there enough parking there to accommodate that? And is it still the thought that the bathrooms would be locked unless those fields are reserved?
JD's our park directors.
Okay. So. Mhm.
Parking. Are you, right now, there's only that one trail that was labeled number 5, I believe, the Blacktop Trail.
The existing trail.
Correct.
Right. And they're all over that on the Tavener side when there's a game on that soccer field. They're all over it. And I sent Burton pictures of, kids on scooters riding down the road between 2 lanes of cars that are parked along Tavener going to that field. And they're all on the walking path too. So they forced all the kids, the people with strollers, the people riding bikes.
So
Because
just a question. I mean, we had our workshop a minute ago and we've already gone over the 3 minutes, but living on Tavener, would you be opposed to parking off of Tavener? Is that a potential
where, what do you
in
mean?
the park? Or would you still
Where them
prefer all the
entering-
parking being on Jobs? Because we did discuss during our workshop, and I don't know if you were here, adding more parking than what's on the map.
No, I was here and looked at the plans initially this fall when they were talking about having the parking down on this other end. It's Jobson Park. I think all the entrances to the park need to be on Jobson. I don't know any reason why you couldn't have parking down in this corner, but it enters and exits off of Jobson.
Okay.
Mhm.
On Jobson.
Right.
And the current plan, as he said, was just aesthetics, but it can, whenever that is actually designed, all of this will be taken.
Right. But I mean, there's plenty of room for more parking over here where they were going to put the fire station at one time. There's plenty of empty land right there. They could just put parking there, but have it be the entrance and egress onto Jobson.
Okay.
Because we're a neighborhood street. We're not
Right.
We're trying to be a neighborhood street. Now it's a raceway on Mitchell, and we're just trying to maintain our neighborhood. But I think the park looks great.
Thank you.
I think
And our designers behind you
yeah,
taking
I
notes.
think it'll
so-
be great. I just think that we need to make sure we don't make a safety issue on Tavener, and that we give the people who are spectators someplace to be where they're not on the walking trail.
Or the trail. Right.
Yeah, because the walking trail doesn't take up, it just takes up the existing baseball field and soccer field. It doesn't take up the entire other 2 fields. And if we're going to, obviously it needs to be repaved and maintained, but if we're going to continue to have that little track there, we need to have that soccer field somewhere where that track can still be utilized and people aren't forced into the streets.
Anything else?
That's it.
Thank you. You make
Thank
very
you.
good valid points. So thank you. Next.
My name is Adrian Cantu. I'm actually Mary's neighbor, and I live on Tavener at 371. I share a lot of the same concerns as my neighbor. There is a lot of parking that accumulates on Tavener when they have soccer and football practice, and she is not distorting what's actually happening. The golf courts, there are abundance of golf carts in our neighborhoods, and they do tend to park all over the trail and force traffic off the trail and off the sidewalks. And it does almost feel like a tailgate at times, especially during football season when the weather's a little bit warmer. Parents use it as a social gathering, like we want them to use the park. But it's just not set up in a way currently to make it conducive to a neighborhood feel. It feels like a parking lot, and no one wants a parking lot in front of their own. So I share that, the same concerns of neighborhoods. I like the park. I've got 5 kids. They all play baseball or softball. We use Jobson Park as much as, or probably more than anyone. And my neighbor can probably speak to that. She sees us out there all the time. My concern is if these are actual baseball use, game use fields, where that parking is going to go. Because if you have a game, you have 2 teams, these are youth fields, so the kids need it right there. So each kid's got at least 1 car. Each field's got at least 20 kids on the field. It's 20 cars for each field. You've got 3 fields, you need at least 60 parking spots to be a maximum kind of buffer against overflow parking into the street. The other concern I have is the facility that's being built along Beltline. A lot of times, and JD can speak to this, when you have a tournament facility like that, they'll have overflow games at nearby facilities, and they would love to use this facility, I'm sure, once it's built, because it's going to be a quality facility. The traffic coming from that facility into Jobson Park more than likely is going to go Beltline to Town East, up Town East, right onto Mitchell, through the neighborhoods, and they're going to see the fields, and they're going to start parking along the exterior of the ballparks. And unless it's a full fence that adults and children can't easily step through or over, they're going to park along the edges of this facility. My dream would be to close the entrance at Mitchell and Jobson, and just that there's no more pass through there. I think that would keep a lot of people along with the fence from parking in the neighborhood. I know that's much more complicated than, you know, picking which kind of tree we want to put in the park. But that would be my dream. That, I think, along with the fence, closing that access would keep people from speeding through that neighborhood. 2 other quick points. The facility at the beach, or the beach that we're hoping to build / volleyball court, if we're expecting the community to help surveil or police the activity that goes on there, I think we would want to get our best amateur police out there. And in my opinion, those are moms. If you want somebody to pick up the phone and call JD or call the police department about activity that you don't want, you put a mom out there and she'll do it. And sand volleyball court is not the most conducive to a bunch of moms. I would suggest a playground with a splash top. You get the whole beach feel still. You're still getting a little bit wet. And if it's a problem area that you want the community to help with, there's nobody better than having a bunch of moms out there. Because beach volleyball is a young woman's sport. And especially at a lake, there will be drinking and there will be the tendency to extend those games and those meetings beyond park hours. So, the other suggestion I had was the park that's along 80, and I don't know the name of it, I forgot it. But I've been to some parks off freeways, and the ones that have parking right off the freeway, you can have the concern of people loitering past park hours, and a gate is good. I've also seen right off the freeway where as you go into the park, you made a hard 90, and they have landscaping, so you can't really see the parking lot. They have arches to show you that the park is there, but that buffering that Ms. Chase brought up with the landscaping, that would be a great idea. I've seen that at Coleman Park up in Sulphur Springs. They have a huge baseball complex right off the freeway. Unless you know it's there, you don't know it's there. And so you're not going to have just random people pulling off the freeway, jumping into a parking lot to sleep overnight or to do other things that are worse than sleeping in your car. So those would be my suggestions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cindy Bernowski, 106 Big Boom Circle. I've been in y'all's chair. I know what you're doing. It's tough making those park plans and trying to think of everything. A couple of comments that I had listening to it for the first time. I really have not looked at the plan until today. One of them was in the dog park. I don't know if y'all have consulted with Frank or not, but he would probably recommend you having a fence somewhere where it's large dogs and small dogs. I don't know if y'all even thought about that. Another thing, And K-Paul, you may know about the pathway that we cut. When I was on 4B, we cut it through the Sun Streets and it can connect over to Homestead. If you go to the very back of the park, there's an alleyway there and you go to the end of the alleyway and then there's the parkway. Are y'all aware of that?
That's better.
Okay, and then there is also, there's another alleyway when you're facing that way off to the right and you go down the alley and I don't know if it still is, but there was a little square piece of land, not even a quarter of an acre, that was no man's land. And we referred to it as a pocket park. I don't know if that still belongs to the town or not, but that would be another place to put a connection with Homestead, the Sun Streets, and the Harris Edition. I don't know if that's even still available. I'm not sure.
You can access
But it
that.
might be something that you can check into.
You can go through the alleys from Paris over to the Sun Streets and then access that.
Right. And there's that little piece of land right there.
I know what you're talking
You know what I'm talking about? Okay. And I don't know if the town still owns it or not.
about.
Yeah. And we got permission through the gas line to put that pathway through. But I don't know. That's just a thought. And then nobody, and y'all may have discussed this before, I wasn't aware of it. Nothing is mentioned about pickleball courts. This is like the big craze for people nowadays. And I've got friends that are just avid pickleball players and they just have a really hard time finding ball fields. And I'm sure that the people that play in Sunnyvale, they're going over to Rowlett and to Wiley and to Saxe because that's where they are. And my sister plays and she's talking about how hard she's in Wiley and how hard it is to get a court. Just there's not many of them and it's just like the new craze. I was in San Diego recently and we passed by a park that had 4 pickleball courts and there must have been 100 people because they were waiting for their turn to get onto the pickleball court. So it's just, I don't play pickleball, but apparently a lot of people do. And the other comment was, I know we had concerns about that lake park and shut it down, because of issues. I don't know if y'all thought about cameras like we kind of have over here at Town Center Park. Yeah, to keep an eye on things over there at that, because that's going to be a real haven for, because if not, the cops are going to spend all their time down there. So anyway, just a few thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody online?
No, sir.
Closed public comments. Move on to agenda item number 3, discuss, consider, and act upon minutes from the January 11, 2022 board meeting. So if you haven't, please take a moment to review them. Sees any corrections? Can we get a motion to approve? Motion made by member Cash. Seconded by member Nair. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. On to item number 4, discuss, consider, and act upon the January 2022 financial reporting and related items.
Good evening. This will be our monthly finance report as of January 31st, 2022. We had month-to-date revenues of $117,000. $117,081. Y'all hear me okay? Oh, okay. And month-to-date expenses of $242,749.80. Bringing your year-to-date totals for revenues, $366,115.80, and your year-to-date expenses, $349,836.36. Your sales tax revenues for the month of January are recorded year-to-date, $362,820. That includes 2 months accrual and 2 months of actual receipts. Year-to-date interest earned is $3,295. Your year-to-date expenses total $349,836, and your month-to-date expenses include your routine payroll, your monthly landscape maintenance at the 4 corners. We placed some no dumping signs at the Rails to Trails property. You had some turf grass maintenance at Vineyard Park. We were a gold sponsor at the Sunnyvale Chamber Quarterly Luncheon. We had a replacement batting cage at Jobson Park, a payment to MHS for the conceptual park planning, the transfer into the general fund for the support of the park budget, and a charge at Hyatt Regency for the TML EDC conference. That is bringing your ending fund balance as of 1/31/2022 to $3,007,339. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any. It is for the, we have 2 months actual sales tax receipts, 4 months in. We have 2 months actual, and for both months, they have been, higher than what is budgeted. So they have been good. Running about 9% over budget right now. Yeah.
I just had the one question, the $222,000 transfer out, I'm assuming that's the transfer for the support for park department budget.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that something that happens yearly?
It's
or-
an annual expense.
Annual expense, okay.
It's currently based on a percentage of the park budget, of the overall park budget, and it's at 33% of that total budget for the park department. So that number is subject to change year over year, depending on what the park budget is.
Okay, that usually happens in January.
We try to do it early in the year.
That was the only thing that caught my eye. Sure what it was.
We don't usually get any kind of backup. We can request from the comptroller's office to see what, the sales tax receipts that we receive each month, what that breakdown is on it. But it is actually just a ton of information that doesn't really, you have to spend an incredible amount of time to actually go through there and, sort it or put it in any kind of an order. And then the information then at that point is still strictly confidential, not to be shared. Mhm. That's great.
We haven't started yet. They've submitted qualified expenditures. We haven't started yet.
We had some recommended changes, and then based on public comments, you made some good points, or they both did. It sounded like either one of them want parking on Tavener. So, but expand that parking on Jobson. I liked his math because and frequently you have 2 cars per kid instead of 1 car based on the way baseball works.
That better? Yeah. Yeah, that would be my recommendation, is to go ahead and expand that parking.
The entries are,
They're on jobs.
the paved entries are all on Jobson, but it's surrounded by a ring, effectively a ring road. And the soccer field is 100 something yards from the parking. So when I had a child that played soccer out there in 2014, many years ago, there weren't many houses, but that's where we parked, was out there on the road, because you just walk straight to the soccer field.
I think that problem is still going to be there, even if you build 200 parking spots. Someone is going to go and park in front of their house out there because they can jump. Right, so how do we handle that is something.
Well, is there a need? I mean, considering these are practice fields, do we need 3 baseball fields? What if you remove one and then move the soccer field away from Taverner?
That's an option. I believe we need 2 additional fields to support the youth numbers currently and expected to grow.
This year, there's 14 teams in Sunnyvale. And then some age groups don't have too many for one age group, so people are having to, you can't have, well, you can, 18 kids on a team is too many, but you split and only have 9 on each team, and that's not enough. So it's towns in a weird flux with baseball.
Is there also, do we have additional space where we can move that field a little bit closer to the baseball fields?
We could look at that. I don't have a button alert. I think about it.
I was trying to avoid that, people parking on the, and that.
I think you got a good point, that I think inevitably people are going to naturally park as close as they can to their destination. I think we can eliminate that some by, I think, providing additional parking will eliminate that some. And the other option is we could do more plantings in that space. Hopefully that would encourage people to not park there or discourage them from parking there because they'd have to get through a landscape buffer essentially to get to that space. Yeah.
I mean, that would take council action to do that.
We'll talk to council next. Problematic. In the spring.
JD, that may be a way to enforce some of these rules. You may want to just thinking about changing that, like nobody can just walk in there.
And it's a nice, large, flat open space. Football has grown substantially since, it's been many years since my family used that soccer field or Jobson, because baseball fields for younger kids.
Is that soccer
But-
field actively used now? Or-
Yeah. But when we were using it, it would be like 4 cars and, 8 kids. And I know what she's talking about with the golf carts now, because when you go to the football games Friday night, people are zipping down trip and going in there, and they're not golf carts. A lot of them are side by sides, which unless they're registered aren't legal on the road. But so
Even though
And
we
that's
call
a
it as a soccer
question
field,
for,
it may be more football happening there than so.
Well, I think if it's at all possible, the only real option is to try to move the soccer field to the middle and move put maybe some of those little landscape buffers around the paved area too, to keep people from just walking through wherever they want. Because that gets them away from that corner where you have the two roads right there, so it's not as attractive to park. They've got to walk a lot farther.
It's still a shorter distance, you know, so that's the part. There's a park when I lived in Richardson again. It was in the middle of a neighborhood that had soccer fields and they bermed around the road. Still, we still ended up parking on the park side of the public road, but they had really wide roads. And then there was a big trail that went around and then a berm. So it discouraged people, but if they set up camp, you had to go up and over the berm and then you were down in the field. But then
Yeah.
if you live on the park, you really don't want to look at a berm. You'd rather look out of the park around.
It's a pretty tricky situation, to be honest.
Can I make one more suggestion? And we take that number 2, the baseball field. Can we take that and replace that with the soccer field?
Which one's?
Talking about the soccer field should be a baseball field facing this way.
We can see if that fits.
In that case, there is nobody going to walk through that, from the tower and coming in there. You'll have 2 baseball fields, one like this and one like this.
Yeah, I think if you have any recreational item right there that's designated recreation, then people are gonna park there.
The baseball field is going to be facing this way, right?
Didn't we just say we needed 3 baseball fields though, based on the?
I think
I
he's
think
talking about.
Yeah,
having them
I'm
both on
talking
the
about like
same
just
square.
switching the
Putting a baseball field where
the soccer field.
the red soccer field is. I think you'd still have, yeah, I think people are still gonna park
there and
closest to their
jump right in there,
destination.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, these are.
What if we extended the road parallel to Mitchell and put in the park and then added some parking in this low area just east of the soccer field? That would alleviate
I
the
see
problem.
where you have the trail that goes between the two,
Yeah, with the rendering is.
or if
Then
you
you go
wrap
back
it
to
around
space.
the backside of the baseball field.
I don't know. Seems like to me, originally we just put a baseball field in there, called it good, but the soccer field was after. And that's the reason it's at the back, but then now it's popular, so.
And again, when it was built, nothing else was out there. So where is additional space at Town Center for soccer? Okay, if you level that. Okay.
The other option is venue. You put more space at venue, or not more space, but designate a field that's multi-purpose. It's packed.
So I guess the only reason on here, number 5 is shown in the exact same spot it's in is because it's already there. But, yeah, if it could be potentially tweaked where you still had the main east-west, but the one that runs along Tavener, we took that out and did it where it follows the curve.
There's an existing sidewalk.
There is on the park side. On the house side, right? That's what I mean. I'm not saying take it out, but if you move this section, and then I guess the section along Mitchell too, kept it, but we relocated it. So people weren't. I mean, it seems like it's common courtesy you wouldn't park on the trail, but obviously people do.
Looked in my backyard, there was a little car flying up and down the green space and drainage ditches and crazy kids.
We making a motion to approve the plan subject to the changes we discussed.
Right, no, that's,
That gives you a lot of flexibility and scratch our heads and think about the comments we heard about.
obviously expand the parking.
Correct. I think, yeah, that's the big one. The items we addressed in the work session, and then we'll expand this parking. And I think we should be. That's everything that you all would like to
Maybe if
approve.
we-
The parking, I think we need to really look and see if number 3 really needs to be there. You know, if we're gonna have all these extra fields everywhere else and it's not an active soccer field.
That is an option. We could undesignate it specifically as a field and just be open lawn space.
No, I'm sure that there is a lot of people living in that community already used to play or practice in that.
Yeah, our
facility.
soccer coach
Yeah,
lives
probably,
on Tavener, and that's the field we used to live in.
yeah, so we probably make out of that as well in that case.
Well, it's still gonna be an open space, but not having certain things there might make people think there's nothing there to park around. It's just,
Yeah, it's just,
No, I like that, what Ash mentioned, like in adding additional parking space in the corner.
on the north side or the south side? On the Mitchell.
He was talking about like where this says 7 and then that red tree in the middle of the field. If you had
Even
a,
if we did that though, there's still gonna be people out there parking. They're gonna be lazy about it. Get their launcher out, whatever.
Some of those-
Parkway, the walkway, and so maybe the best course is to eliminate that. soccer field. That problematic.
you can put the frisbee golf there that has been
that
on
way
the plan.
people
for a
are bringing
long
their
time.
pop-up tents to watch
No, let
the
me tell you,
baseball. They've
even
got
if it
room
is
to do
a-
it, and they'll stay off the
even if it
walkway.
is a free space, people are going to park there and jump. Don't you think so?
Well, that's,
I think,
that would be more if they're gonna just go walk or something like that, you know.
yeah, the intent behind the neighborhood park is that people in that neighborhood utilize the park and everyone's walking or using golf carts. But that has just changed over the past decade and people drive to parks now. And again, unless you want to build a whole lot of parking, I think it's inevitable people are just going to park to the closest spot, the closest destination that they're going to. I think it's just in our nature. You know, originally we did have, if you can see in the bend in Tavener, it's further down towards where there's the back of the houses are closer. We tried to put in parking up on that side to encourage people to be at least getting off the street. But there was some even expressed tonight that the entrance would rather be off Jobson and not bringing additional traffic back there to park. So that's why that is no longer there. So it's a tricky situation. I think the one, like, we could put, if you did just use that as multi-purpose practice lawn area or something along those lines and not designate it as a soccer or football field, that could maybe eliminate it. I think people will still utilize it that way until other field space is constructed and the town directing people to go to other spaces.
Let us revisit it with some more ideas.
I agree with her. I've thought about the pickleball as well. That's a growing in popularity, but a lot of places I've seen it, they do it on existing tennis courts and you just turn it because you can do a pickleball court on half of a tennis court. So where we have our existing tennis courts, you can do it, or where the potential sand volleyball is. I don't know if you can do multi-surface or, again, but that's optional. Sand volleyball. Okay. Right. Yeah, I know people that go out there and you take your own net and throw it up.
The other thing, just to put that in context, we surveyed that in the survey, and that was actually one of the lowest ranked amenities that people were interested in. So,
There's
yeah, it
a
was only
highly ranked
12% interested.
pickleball player here in Sunnyvale that does less.
I mean, generally, it is something that's growing in popularity, but when we did our survey, it ranked pretty low for us.
You took that survey net now. It's just now something that.
Where 3 years, just before COVID, they had the major pickleball tournament somewhere here in Dallas, and people from all over the country came in. It was, a bunch of mostly 60s and up, but it was.
It's extremely popular.
Any other questions or comments?
There was a comment on that dog park.
Right.
And we can add a line in there to designate large and small.
And then the gentleman made a comment about removing the 3 acres.
Right.
Just wanted us to be-
Thinking about we have a splash pad in there already, but it's pretty small. So again, I like the idea of putting optional on there and giving ourselves flexibility, but it had a very valid point. So if you had it where it was extremely attractive to people to go out there with their young kids, they're going to police it. So I think the longer pier and keeping some of these other things, So somebody can make a motion to approve with pending updates, which keeps the project moving, or if we don't want to approve it, you have to go make all the pending updates and come back and do it.
I make a motion that we approve the plan as presented with changes discussed.
Motion made by member Cash. Motion seconded by member Padmanabam. All those in favor? Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hard enough doing one. But I'm glad we did. Next, discuss, consider updates for the following ongoing projects.
That was nice.
Anything new with Glacier? As far as I know, it's kind of no change other than the progression of the.
Yeah, we reviewed 50% plans. They're advancing that to, and frankly, the 50% plans, because this is so simple, was way more than 50%. But they're advancing those to 100% drawings, and then we'll bid that out. And the plan is to bring that back to council probably in the May timeframe for action.
So we can look, and that's the 10 stall
Yes.
and everything else that has to go.
Yes.
Town center. Anything different? Jobson, we kind of talked all over that. I did, hearing her comments, it's been so many years since I used it with our kids. And when I've been over there at friends' houses that live on Tavener, or when football season or whatever. So I guess anything we can do to discourage the parking on the trails and all that kind of stuff. I mean, that's, I don't know what the answer is, other than putting signs up, and then if the police go by enough to go, hey, friendly reminder, get off the trail. And then the other thought was, she's saying they're camping out on the west side of the football soccer field. So I don't know how expensive it would be, but if you put some inexpensive bleachers in there that blocked the view slightly from the road, it might encourage people to go in front of the bleachers to watch their kids on the soccer field as opposed to camping out on the trail. Any change with Vineyard? Rails to trails. I've seen a number of people out walking the section behind the school now that you guys cleaned it up. Had a number of people asking, when we're moving forward. And at this point, the answer I've been providing is waiting for next year with the grant funding from Dallas County. I don't want to give away free money when it comes to the planning standpoint.
One of the things we're also doing with the section specifically behind the school, since you mentioned it, was the residential development that's going in on the south side of Nance. They're required to put in a certain length of trails throughout their neighborhood, and they're having difficulty fitting enough trail within their development that we let them extend into the rails to trails. So as part of that project, they will actually be building the rails to trails trail adjacent to their neighborhood. So that'll be a good starting point.
Nice.
Workers did a good job of getting rid of the tagging.
I don't know who's tagged those manhole covers, but those look really nice. That's different. The turtle and the ant mound and the whatever else.
Mushroom.
That's neat. Town beautification. You mentioned sprinklers.
Why no one is showing up for the pre-bid meeting? Isn't that bad?
Looked like they were out pulling electrical or something today in the circle. They're digging down under the ground doing something.
I don't know specifically what they were doing. They're addressing a lot of punch list items
Okay.
out on that corridor right
The
now.
update on
The only thing I can guess on the irrigation project is just people are busy, being super selective about projects. And I think we're making some phone calls to try and generate some interest, though.
I've contacted 10 or 12 irrigation landscape companies and provided those lists to Charles and Burton, but no one chose to attend the pre-bid meeting. So we just called them individually to try to get them interested.
Do we have anyone who's primarily based out of Sunnyvale? Do we have any contractors like that?
I don't think that we have an irrigation or landscape company that's large enough to handle a job like this. No, sir. I'm not sure if we have a landscape company in Sunnyvale.
yeah,
Are there?
I'll provide you contact them.
Okay, great.
It's an extensive project. There's a 12-inch water line that runs along the west side, so that all those cross connections, with it being turnkey, that contractor is going to have to make those connections, tap the water line, set the meter, set the double check. It's not just
Like doing
like
yard.
water's already set up, you just tie into the existing and like you would your yard. It's a lot more involved. I think, and we just gotta keep calling folks, try to get some interest. And at some point in time, we'll get some.
The economy is really good, really busy, right? That's what it is.
Is there a place you can post where?
It was advertised twice in Mesquite News. It's been online since January the 20th. And then anyone that's subscribed to our bid postings was notified.
Development construction updates. Seen the Burger King sign go up. Starbucks is looking pretty close. The big warehouse looks almost done from the outside, but I'm sure there's still a lot going on.
Yeah, they're planning to request their shell CO by the end of the month.
Oh.
They're getting close. Yes. Yes. So they're just digging some more lagoons.
And then the insurance building in front of the wedding venue looks like it's moving along pretty quick. For the office space, I should say. Any update on the lights? Sounds like they've been next month or two or something. On
The lights on Collins. So like it's one issue after another here. So now we're to where we're trying to coordinate with Encore about getting power to the lights. And Encore's been a bit preoccupied for the past couple weeks. So as I think we finally got an answer from them today, I believe. So it's just a matter of coordinating with them on pulling power to them. Cool.
Next is discuss, consider, approve revisions of the Sunnyvale Economic Development Corporation's mission statement. Anybody like what we came up with? I don't know if you need to put it up on. So our proposed mission statement is to preserve Sunnyvale's rural community character and enhance quality of life through creation of parks and open space while targeting businesses that diversify and sustain economic growth. I get a motion to approve. Motion made by member Padmanabhan,
Second that.
seconded by member Chase. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Discuss future agenda items and events. So do we have any up close events?
We're preparing for the trash off. We've already got the vendor set for,
That's Phil Jobson.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. We've already got that set. Erica's actually created the flyer today that we'll post online. We've had our meeting with Republic. We've got the company that does the electronic recycling and the paper shredding agreed to on the date, which is the last Saturday in April. And so it'll be 23, April 23rd. So it'll be from 9 to 2 on that day. And then we've already begun to work on Sunnyfest.
Noticed we were a sponsor of the CEF Gala, the KREWE, how do you pronounce that level? Which comes with a table for 10. We're listed on the CEF website at least, so is that correct?
Yeah, we haven't received anything yet from,
But we did do that.
as long as they send us an invoice, yes.
Oh, okay. I'm sponsoring a table as well, so but anybody that was interested in sitting at that table, unless you had targeted businesses or something that you're inviting, let him know, because we have a table for 10. It's a great event, you know, that those funds go to support our kids and Sunnyvale schools and the teachers. teachers, if you're not familiar with it, request scholar grants from CEF for specific projects. They pay for computers and programs and teacher bonuses and a number of different things. So it's a great event, and it's coming up in 3 weeks. So pretty soon. Barring anything else, can I get a motion to adjourn? Motion made by member Cash. I will second. All those in favor? We adjourn at 8:19 p.m.
Maybe you don't put me on that spread, but it was the other day when, you know.